Hey guys, this is a sort of podcast thing that I'm gonna do, I guess. I don't know why I was feeling like doing this, but I am now. So hi, first off, hello. This is the first time I've been on the internet. I really don't expect me to put this up, so I'm kind of half-assing the whole thing. But this is a story. I'm here to tell the story of my relationship that I had recently. It ended a couple weeks ago. It started. We'll do the whole timeline, don't worry. So yeah, hi. I'm just gonna get into it. Yes, this is sad, by the way. I'm doing this in an attempt to, I don't know, it's good for me to talk. It's a good way for me to get my emotions out. You might notice this is pretty low effort. This will not be edited. This is certainly not scripted. And I'm using just the worst voice that I have when I'm trying to be more feminine. And this is the voice I'm giving you. Please note that that can only mean bad things. So hi. This timeline starts a little while ago. I'm going to be bad about that kind of thing, timelines, but I'm going to do my best here. But before the timeline even starts, so I've been transitioning. For those of you who don't know, I am working on becoming more feminine and so on and so on. And so I didn't think the concept of being in a relationship to me was scary. It sounded like something that would be really nice, but also terrifying and a lot to ask of somebody. Like, hey, I am going to be just someone totally different in a month. And then in another month, it's going to be different again. And I'm just going to be this constantly changing. And I'm going to be going through a lot of very complicated emotions and a lot of complicated hormonal changes and expensive and potentially like long-term recovery type surgeries. The thought of like asking someone to sort of join me on that just didn't sound like a good idea. And then you add in like the potential sexual intimacy, and yeah, that's just terrifying. So point is, a relationship wasn't something that I thought I was going to be doing at all. But about 2 months ago now, I think. Yeah, I think about 2 months ago. I had this random urge. I really wanted to talk to people. I wanted to sort of be romantic. I wanted to have the opportunity to flirt, I guess. I don't really know. It was a confusing feeling, but where it ended up was Tinder. I decided to download Tinder. I'd been on Tinder before, once, as a man. And it went fine, but mostly poorly. I matched with one person. She was very nice. We got along pretty well, and then for our own personal reasons, we just sort of fell off. And like we never got together. We talked for probably like a week, on and off about, our lives and what we're doing on Tinder and things like that. And then just sort of fell off for no specific reason, but the whole time I was still trying to match with other people, and like, nope. Tinder for men is kind of a bad time, at least for straight men, or men who are seeking women. My own complicated sexuality aside. And so I'd sort of decided, like, okay, that's just not for me. Like, I'm glad some people find a use for it, and I'm glad some people enjoy it, but it wasn't for me. So I decided to put it by the wayside and move on. So when I had this thought a couple months ago, the reason I ended up on Tinder, I decided that as a queer woman, like, it was going to be a very different experience. And I turned out to be super duper correct. So I made the account, did all my shit, set up a bio and whatnot. And then did some swiping for a little while. Went to bed. When I woke up, I had like 4 matches. And I proceeded to have like decent conversations with most of them. The other thing that's worth noting, I didn't have a picture in my bio. I'm still not comfortable with how I look. I'm still not happy with how I present. And so instead of a picture, I had a screenshot that explained why I didn't have a picture. Very bluntly, it said something like, I'm a trans woman and I'm not comfortable with my face quite yet, but like, I like talking to people, so HMU. So that was probably the most wild of it all. Like, Tinder went so well considering how weirdly I approached it and how different it was from how it went for me as a man. And I can't say I'm too surprised. Again, the queer community in general, this is not what this is about. But it's worth noting that this whole thing starts on Tinder. Of the people I talk with, I'll give their name because it's not their real name, and because it could be different now. We'll talk about all that. So one of the people I matched with is this person named Eden. Eden is non-binary, identifies as polyamorous. I think identifies mostly lesbian, if not entirely. Sexuality is complicated. Please don't ask too many questions. That's not what this is here for. I'm perfectly happy to talk about that, but not right now. And generally, it's not smart to do it on behalf of other people. I'm just trying to give some demographic information type stuff, and stuff that will come up later. So for those of you eagle-eared listeners, you might notice I said polyamorous. I didn't know what that meant. I thought I did, and then turns out I was confused. And over the past 3 months, between Eden and some other conversations with people on the internet and whatnot, I've learned a bit more about exactly what polyamorous means, so I will explain that. How Eden defined polyamorous, and something that I think works very well, is they said they allow themselves to fall in love with other people regardless of their current relationship status. And that was something that I understand very well. I have a lot of affection for people. I think I do identify as polyamorous now that I understand what it is, but this story isn't really about me. Or it kind of is, but not like that. So the reason that this is important is because, when Eden and I start talking, one of the first things I learn is that they are currently in a relationship with a boy named Aaron. And they are on break. And that the break will be ending at some point, and we'll deal with that when the time comes. So I have to paint this picture properly. I was highly unready for a relationship, or not unready, but really had no idea how I was supposed to be in one, what it was going to look like or anything. So I felt completely insane. I messaged so many people, all of my friends. I was like, hey, I'm insane. I have to share this with people. Within like 12 hours. No, within like a couple hours. I don't remember how long. Very quickly, after talking with Eden, I felt like inviting them to my house and spending time with them. The goal was specifically to cuddle. That was sort of the impetus. That was the date idea. So the whole thing felt insane. The concept of bringing someone to my house was terrifying on its own right. The concept of doing something physical, even if not like sexual, that's still very like intimate, and they have to be aware of my body, and I'm not very happy with my body. So I had to face being perceived. So that's why this all felt so completely insane. The next day, I believe, we have our first date. I pick them up, and I bring them to my house, and we hang out. We proceed to have an incredible time. Like, it's a really good date. We like each other a lot. We do end up having sex. I have no intention of going into very much detail here, because that's not what this story is about. Though it kind of is. We'll deal with the end when we get there. This is what unscripted means, by the way, is that you get these lulls where I'm just like, so... If you're self-aware about things, no one can ever make fun of you. That's the secret. So we have a lovely date, and we talk about, I was like, hey, so I feel like this has gone pretty well. And I feel like we had already talked about like what we're going to do on our next date. Like, this wasn't just a one-time thing. So I'm like, hey, what happens in a month when you're off break with your boyfriend? Like, what happens to me? And they just say, I don't know. Like, they don't know exactly. They weren't really supposed to have feelings for anyone. They were just supposed to fuck around. Their boyfriend, I realize I'm leaving out some details. Their boyfriend wants to be exclusive and monogamous with them, and they are polyamorous. They aren't interested in that. They love him and they want to be with him, but they also want to be able to pursue other people. And so that's part of the reason why they took the break, was because Eden was feeling a little bit stifled. And so he gave them express permission to be with other people during this break if they wanted. And so they got Tinder. And then they met me. And I fucked the whole thing up. Oh, my desk is kind of gross. So I'm probably gonna just skip through the timeline a little bit. We have a few really nice dates. We have pretty much no bad times. Everything goes really well. I don't really believe in or care about chemistry too much. Like that inherent getting alongness that people have. Like, I never really cared about that. I believe that any two people can make a relationship work if they are both willing to put in the time and the effort and all that. Whatever is necessary to make the relationship work and be healthy and successful. So, I don't really care about that, but it is impossible to not notice how well we get along without even trying. We agree on nearly everything. Like, we just feel good talking to one another and being around one another. So we have like a few successful dates. Each of them looks pretty similar. We generally spend time at my house. We generally do some cuddling, do some sexing, do some talking. There was one time we realized we both went to the same high school, and I, for whatever reason, had my yearbooks close by. So we looked through and found pictures of each other, and we talked about our friends and the different people that we liked and things like that. Sometimes just pausing to be like, hey, this person is very attractive. Just anytime we agreed on somebody. So that was part of it. It was good to talk. It was good to be with somebody. So that's what we did. A few dates in, I don't remember when this is in the timeline. Brain says the third date, if it matters. I've always been one to, I can't say always. I have recently, and I can now say always, I'm someone who steps into my vulnerability. I understand the intensity of my emotions, and I don't back away from them. I'm not afraid to feel how I feel. So, at some point, I feel ready enough, and I decide to tell them that I love them. We're laying there, hanging out, talking about nothing, potentially. And I say, okay, I gotta do a whole thing right now. So give me a second. And so I tell them my feelings, and they don't reciprocate, which is fine. I don't expect them to. I am a lot. I know who I am. But it goes really well. They are very accepting of it. I ask them, I'm like, if you want, I feel this thing, but if you don't want me to say it, I understand. This is not the first time I have confessed my love to somebody, and I understand that not everybody is very comfortable with it, and so they don't want me saying it. So I offer this sort of thing to them. And Eden says, it's kind of selfish, but I want to hear it. I like hearing that I'm loved. And I don't know how anyone else feels about that kind of thing. I absolutely love that. It's partially selfish on my part as well. I want to say it. I want to express my feelings. I want to be so painfully communicative in my emotions. And so when this person takes specific joy from being told, it's just a simple, how I feel in the moment, opening that door for me felt really good. And they had a few things like that. They are non-binary, femme presenting generally. And I asked them early on, this is a question I like to ask people, how do you feel about compliments? A lot of compliments can be gendered. So is it okay if I use more feminine gendered compliments, more masculine gendered compliments? What do you prefer? So on. And so I ask them this, and they just sort of pause for a second and look at me in the eyes and just say more. They're just someone who knows what they want, and they have clearly spent a lot of time with themselves learning about who they are, and that's something that I appreciate. A lot of people, I think, struggle with that kind of thing and struggle to know themselves. And so having them know who they are, and specifically allowing me to dote on them, my mother always used the phrase, worship the ground she walks on. I say she because my mother always gendered it, because I was a little boy. And she said, I hope you find a girl one day and you worship the ground she walks on. So that's sort of the phrase that sticks in my head, is that concept. The people that I love, I want to tell them I love them. I'm kind of repeating myself because I'm just very intense, and I want to get this idea across well. So that happens. Again, it goes very well. Oh gosh. Excuse me while I adjust in my chair. At some point, between dates, this happened over text, I know. We do make it official that we are indeed dating. And that felt really good. They asked me out, which is the first time that's ever happened. I've always been in the masculine role. I've always been the one who asks rather than the one who gets asked. And it was incredibly nice to have that. It was incredibly nice. I really don't know how to say it any better. Just to feel that. They knew how I felt, and it was something that we'd make jokes about all the time. I'm pretty sure on our first date, I made jokes about getting married and shit like that. But to have them sort of take a serious tone with me and say, yes, I would like to date you. I've decided to do this. And them knowing full well that, of course, I would. It was really nice. So that happens. And then at some point, Eden and I are hanging out, and they're a little bit off, I thought. And so I mention this, and they say, okay, I have to talk to you about something. The break with Aaron was supposed to end September 10th. And this is, I think, a week and a half, 2 weeks before then. I'm trying my best with the timelines. Work with me here. I'm sorry. Eden says, I need to talk to you. I saw Aaron yesterday. We hung out and we talked. And it hasn't changed anything between you and I, but it has clarified some things that we were unsure about. And that is on September 10th, at the actual end of the break, Eden is, I don't know exactly what verbiage I want to use here, so work with me. As of September 10th, Aaron does not want Eden seeing anybody else. Which means that by September 10th, they need to break it off with me. They're very clear with me and Aaron that they are interested in being with me, and that despite the fact that they've chosen to end the break early, that they are going to spend the time that they were supposed to with me. They're going to go all the way up to September 10th. And again, very clear with both of us, which was very nice of them to have that understanding. Over the next little while, the three of us all just have a bad time. Aaron doesn't want Eden to be with me. I don't want to lose Eden. Eden doesn't want to lose me and doesn't want to upset Aaron. None of us make it easy for each other. I know I really can't speak for anyone else, but I know that I usually refer to myself as communicative to a fault. I wanted Eden to know how much I care about them. I wanted to do what I could to try and help us stay together. And so I was very intense, even more so than usual. And I caused a lot of stress for them by not, what they wanted. And we talked about this a lot. And what they said to me directly was what they wanted was just a clean break. They wanted to just sort of be with me. And then on September 10th, it's over and we just sort of don't, no problems. That was never a timeline that I was going to accept. It probably would have been easier if I did. I'm not the hero of this story. So eventually, I get a text from Eden that is sent to both me and their boyfriend. And it says, hey guys, I can't handle this. I don't want to see either of you. I just need some time to think and to be myself without either of you. You guys stress me out just by existing. Please don't text me, don't Snapchat me, don't message me on Instagram, don't come to my house. Like, very clear, very aggressive. Absolutely none of it. I'm kind of blindsided by this. In hindsight, I think it was possible for me to understand the amount of stress that they were going through and how that might sort of culminate. I text Aaron, this is the first time I've ever talked with him, and I say, hey, did you know this was going to be happening? Like, were there any signs of this? He ends up calling me. We talk on the phone for a little while. We both learn each other's voice. And we talk about sort of our worries about Eden and hoping that they're okay. They'd had suicide attempts in the past. But they assured us both they wouldn't do that in a way that made me believe them. They were with friends as much as they could be. So I began waiting. That was the best thing I could think to do. That was what they asked us to do, so that's what I did. Aaron and I decide to get together the next day and talk about things. I initiate that. I thought if Eden was being stressed out by sort of Aaron and I and the way we were interacting and the way we were handling things, then, well, if we can get together, if we can talk things out, then we can remove that stress for them. That was the idea. So we get together at a local sandwich shop, and we talk for 4 hours about Eden, of course, and about our worries about them. And then we're both very good at losing track of things. We end up just sort of learning about each other, and he had started collecting Transformers over the past month, and so he was showing me the ridiculously weird sexualized ones that you can find on the weird third-party websites. So we just talked about sort of our likes and dislikes and what we do and all that. As well as, of course, Eden and how we've interacted with them and how our stories have played out with them and things like that. So it goes very well. I feel like by the end of my time talking with him that he is more understanding of what polyamory is, potentially more accepting of my place in Eden's life. And, at some point I said, I was it's important to me that you know that Eden dating me does not, cause any problems in your relationship. It does not change the way that the two of you interact. It just adds another person for them to interact with. Polyamory is difficult for people to understand sometimes. I had it defined wrong, but I still got the basic concepts. Pretty much I was just too specific without going into details about how wrong I was. I still understood sort of the underlying, that's not how a heart works. It's not that he gets a part and I get a part and therefore it's not complete for him. That's not how that works. People like to talk about the heart in pieces and giving a piece of my heart to somebody and so on, but it's not quite that simple, is it? Love is a complex emotion. So we talk about this, and I feel like it's a successful talk. Again, I feel pretty good about it. I see my brother afterwards, and I tell him, I feel okay about how things are going. And as of this point, as of my talk with Aaron, the 10th is less than a week away. I think I saw him on like a Monday, and the 10th was a Friday. I don't remember specifics, but like something around there. And he was talking about that he'd gotten the 10th off a long time ago so that he could like spend a day with Eden to like sort of, when the break was initially going to be ending there and it was going to be like a big deal. And so he was like, if they're not talking to us at that point, I might struggle a bit. So point is, I talked with him about potentially spending time with him on Friday to sort of keep him occupied and prevent us both from going to their house or something stupid. I think the main thing, we didn't just end conversation. So we both go home. We don't really talk. I text him, I think the next day or 2 days after, just as like, hey, just checking in, like seeing how you're feeling about this. I can't stop thinking about this. I'm sure you can't either. Like, I know this is difficult. And he just responds, he's like, I'm doing okay, but I'm at work right now. I was like, oh, I forgot people have jobs. So I think I literally send that. I forgot people have jobs. And then I text him Friday morning. I'm like, hey, today's the day. I really hope you're feeling okay. If you want to hang out, let me know. I get a response a couple hours later from Eden through Aaron's phone. That's a breakup text. It says, I'm sorry, I wish we could have ended on good terms. It says, I understand if you don't like me. It says, I'm sorry. That didn't make any sense to me. The whole thing felt very strange. It didn't even sound like Eden's typing. What I thought it was like a ploy from Aaron to get me to leave them alone. Because it was very difficult to trust him with how much he wanted me gone. So I text back. I'm like, wait, hold on. Like, is this it? Hang on. What's going on? I try calling both of their phones, Aaron and Eden, and get no response. I've been blocked by enough people to know what it's like when you call and you're blocked, and I was blocked on both of them. I double check, and Eden is just totally gone from my Snapchat, which means that I'm blocked on Snapchat as well. And so I do the only thing that I can think of, and I show up at their house. I get ready first. I shower, and I brush my teeth, and I get myself ready, and the whole time I'm trying to think of something else to do. And I can't. So I go to their house, and without giving the weird details, the three of us end up all talking on Eden's front porch. They live with their mom, and their mom was asleep, and they didn't want to wake them up. So they sort of brought us all outside so we could talk. I have a lot of questions. Why? I have a lot of questions. Almost none of them get answered. I learned that Eden has been talking with Aaron for a couple days, not too many, but a couple days. And that's kind of it. I'm trying to think of another piece of information that I learned. The whole time, Eden can't look me in the face. They're barely speaking. It's mostly Aaron who does any talking at all. And eventually, sort of mid-sentence, mid-conversation, like at no specific ending point, Aaron just says, okay, and sort of grabs Eden by the shoulders, and sort of puts them inside the house. Like, just opens the door behind him and puts Eden inside, goes in, and goes to close the door. I'm like, I'm sorry, is this it? Like, this is really it? And he says, yes, this is it. Goodbye, Luna. And he closes the door and he locks up. I don't understand. I don't understand. This isn't quite the end of the story. I don't know. I get that I fucked up. That I wasn't very thoughtful towards them, and that I caused a lot of stress for them. But we talked so much. We knew each other well, and I know that they knew that I would want to talk to them. A conversation to end a relationship. Not a text, not whatever this was. It's not nearly simple enough to say that I think I deserved more. First off, because that's very narcissistic, I suppose, in a way. It's reductive. Like, sure, maybe, but also they deserve to have the ending that they wanted, and no one owes me anything. Like, there's too much going on to simply say, like, I deserved better. This has nothing to do with, like, my quality as a person, and therefore the quality of the breakup that I received. Relationships are defined by the people in them. And so the end of them is defined the same way. So this is how I lose Eden. It was like this. A very unsatisfying, a very frustrating, just riddled with misunderstandings and so I go home. I go home. I do a lot of thinking. Since I know I'm blocked, I send I think I just send one voice memo. I have a tendency to leave voice messages. I like doing that kind of thing. It's pretty much just what I'm doing here, but way shorter. The longest they can be is 12.5 minutes, and I try to not make them be 12.5 minutes, but I talk a lot. So I just sort of send them this text that I know they won't get. That's just me talking about how I feel about stuff, I think. I don't really remember. I just remember that was something I did to try to help process. I reach out to a couple people in the hopes I can talk to them and try to understand. Eventually, time passes, days pass. I'm sad. I'm not doing well about this. And I think about, like, there's just stuff that I want to say to them at this point. Like, there's stuff, the stuff that I would have said if they'd had a conversation to break up with me, instead of it being one-sided. I want to be clear, whatever language I use, I am not upset with Eden's choices. I understand where it comes from. I get who I am and how difficult it can be to look me in the face. I can be manipulative. I've got my own flaws. Of course, I forgot to mute my phone. So, regardless of what language I use, regardless of how it may sound, I want to be clear that sometimes I just can't think of a better way to say stuff. But I'm not upset with them. I'm not. When I love somebody, I learned that it doesn't ever stop. If I ever tell you that I love you and I mean it, then know that it will be for the rest of your life. No matter who you are, no matter how you might change, no matter what you go through. Eden, I talked about, they might not even have that name. Eden talked about, Eden is not their first name, Eden is not their second name. When they came out as non-binary, they changed their name, and then they did it again, and now as Eden they've decided, or they talked to me about potential different name changes they could do, that they might want to do. So that's the reason I bring that up. Regardless of what name they have, regardless of how they define themselves, regardless of literally anything. When I fall in love with someone, I fall in love with the person. Not who the person is right now, not how they act, but them. It's not about a name, it's not about a face. It's about the soul, essentially. I'm not a spiritual person. I don't actually believe in the existence of a soul. But the concept that, every person has something unique and intrinsic to them that no one else has, simply by existing. I suppose in that sense I believe in souls, if that's what a soul is. I don't know how it usually gets defined by people. I'm getting off topic here a little bit. I have a lot of complex thoughts that have gone into this. Anyways, so at this point in the timeline, I have things that I want to tell them, things that I want to talk to them about, but I have no way to do that. But I remember their address, and so I write them a letter. And it's exactly what I just said. It's everything I wanted to say. It's everything I would have said if we'd had a conversation to break up. It's explaining how I will always love them no matter what. It's explaining that to the best of my abilities I will be here. That regardless of what I'm going through, I will always be around. If they ever need, I'm like, if you need a car ride, a friend, a place to sleep, a relationship, I don't really care, I'm around. And if you need any of those things or anything I missed, you are always welcome to reach out. So I send them this letter, and then I wait, because that's all you can do when you send a letter. And in a few days they text me, and they just say, I read your letter. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes trying to think if anything I could say is worth saying. They apologize again. They say, I know you don't blame me, but I think I fucked up. I told you I wouldn't run away, and then I did, I believe, is one of the phrases they used. And then they say, I'll miss you, and goodbye. And that's it. That was a few days ago. I don't remember exactly when. It could be a week at this point. It's probably been a week. I don't remember. And they're gone. The whole thing happened in pretty much less than a month. It was just a speed run of a relationship. It was everything I've already been through with Kylie. If you don't know the name Kylie, I am not doing that story right now. I guess I can give it a little more specific, or a little less specific. My ex. It was everything I'd been through with my very long-term, very intense, and very monogamous relationship with Kylie, but just boiled down to a month. It was all the same intensity. It was all the same feelings on my part, but just shorter, and with somebody very different, obviously. So yeah, I haven't taken it well. I'm still struggling immensely to do much of anything. I'm really tired. I think about them all the time. I don't know what to do. I like being in a relationship. It's a state of mind that my brain works really well with. I'm like working through relationship problems and that kind of thing. Oh no. Streamlabs is frozen. Please don't do this right now. Oh. I don't know if this is still recording, but if it is, I'm just gonna keep going. Because, I can't click anything. Yep, I just have to assume. Until... Oh? Okay. Yep, everything's fine. Cool. Sorry for that. Oh boy, that really threw off my train of thought. Oh, I do really well in relationships, or my brain does. So yeah, being with Eden, it was supposed to be sort of the end of my... After my relationship with Kylie, I realized a lot of my flaws and how dangerous I potentially am to other people in relationships. And so I took some time off. And in that time, quarantine happened. I started streaming slightly before then. Or no, that was after. I don't remember. I met large communities of people, and I did a lot of work in therapy. I've been on antidepressants for a long time now. I started transitioning. And so with Eden, it was supposed to be the end of that time. It was supposed to be the culmination. It was supposed to be proving to myself that I've learned and that I'm ready for a relationship, even if I didn't know it. Because I didn't think I was ready for a relationship. But once I was in one, I felt better about everything. Shit started to make sense. And so now I'm out of it again. And I have to remember what I'm doing. I have to be doing something. And it's very difficult for me now. There's a lot that I'm left with now. I've noticed some complications in my sexuality. I have no idea if I'm interested in sex at all anymore. And if I am, in what way. It's complicated. I have a lot of thinking to do, and it's complicated. But this is a person who I learned so much from, about them and about the way that people can be, and about myself and what I'm comfortable with, and what I want to be in a relationship, and how I want to be treated, and things like that. This is a person who will not leave my mind for the rest of my life. And I don't know how to reconcile that with the fact that I can't speak with them again. Like that it's just over. unless I do something properly insane where I go to their house again, but this time totally unprompted and probably in the middle of the night because I've thought too much about this. It's over. It has to be over. I have to understand. And I don't know how. So I'm stuck recording hour-long versions of the story in the hopes that it helps me process things. In the hopes that I can learn something. I don't know. I was doing better for a few days, and then tonight's been really rough. I don't really know what happened or why or what. I know there's a lot that I didn't talk about in this. I'm starting to think I might actually post this, so I should address the people that are gonna listen to this. First off, hi. So yeah, I know there's a lot that I didn't talk about regarding my transition and stuff that would make sense to talk about. I also know that I don't sound any different, and I know that when all you have is a voice, it's hard to understand things from my perspective and the work that I've done and whatnot. So if you have any questions, you can always message me on Discord or something. It's not that I don't want to talk about it, it's just that's not what this was for. I should probably edit this, but I'm not going to. I don't even have editing software. It's not something I've even kind of done. I'm just thinking about how annoying this might be to actually listen to. But whatever. That's me. That's what I'm here to be. I don't even know how to end this. I don't know. I don't want to end this. I want to just talk about... I want to talk to Eden. That's what it comes down to. And I can't. And so instead I just sort of scream into the void and hope. I hope this story all made sense. God knows what kind of details I might have left out that I remembered that I felt were self-explanatory that weren't. Yeah, if you made it this far, congrats. I think I'm actually going to post this. I don't know why. But yeah, I think I'm going to post this. I appreciate you all. I will be streaming again in a few months, hopefully. And hopefully I won't sound like this. And I'll be actually comfortable with my face and we'll do the whole thing. Maybe I'll even be happy then. We will see. Doesn't mean to be so grim. Yeah, I'm just gonna sign off. I really don't know how to end this. I've always been bad at goodbyes. Anytime I have to end a thing. For those of you who have been around for the end of my streams, you know this. I appreciate you all immensely. I know that you didn't have to do anything, but I appreciate you letting me vent like this. I do very well talking things out. This is how I process shit the best, so I am appreciative, as always. Maybe I'll do more of this. Random stories, stuff I feel like talking about. Hopefully there'll be a lighter tone. Hard to know. That's it. I'll see you guys around. I don't know. Whatever. Goodbye.